Hi there. Today I'm going to talk to you about mountain electronics. And specifically, this is important to note that this video is being recorded in May of 2025. By May of 2026, some of this information may have changed actually quite radically. Uh, we'll see. There's a lot going on in the world of mountain electronics. So I want to go through this. So to begin with, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about communications, cell phones, sat phones, satellite messaging systems, radios. We're going to talk about navigation systems, including watches and phone apps. We're going to talk about charging, battery banks, solar panels. We're also going to talk about avalanche transceivers, RECCO systems, air tags, and drones. So if you look below, at the information about this particular presentation, you can find where each of these different sections start. So who am I and who are we? I'm the director of the American Alpine Institute, a 50-year-old guide service with a mission to provide world-class mountain education, exceptional guided experiences, and to inspire natural preservation. We have courses and expeditions in several states and countries. You can check us out. Sign up for a course or an expedition at alpineinstitute.com. Let's get into who I am. I am the director at the Institute. I have been here for 25 years at this point, and I became a partial owner in maybe 2015, and I and my wife bought the company in 2023. I'm an American Mountain Guides Association certified rock and alpine guide. I'm an American Mountain Guides Association single pitch instructor provider, i.e., I make single pitch instructors, and I'm a provider trainer. I also was one of the authors on the AMGA single pitch manual. I'm a former board member of the AMGA. I'm a current volunteer member of the Bellingham Mountain Rescue Council, and I'm a former president. I'm a policy committee member of the Coalition for Outdoor Access. That's the group that helped get the SOAR Act and the Explore Act passed recently. I'm a former member of the Southern Nevada Climbers Coalition. I guided exclusively in Red Rock for about 10 years between September and May each year, and in other places in the summer. I'm a current member of the Anacortes Community Forest Lands Climbing Committee, which helps manage the climbing at Mount Erie in Anacortes. Most of my guiding right now takes place in the Red Rocks of Southern Nevada and in the North Cascades, though I've guided all over the world. So we're going to start by talking about communications in this presentation. And we're going to start specifically by talking about cell phones. So there's a lot of things to know about cell phones. And the first thing that's valuable is that everyone has one. Another thing that's valuable is that even if your cell phone doesn't work sometimes, sometimes it still works on 911. So if anybody in a given area has service at a given time, if you're on Verizon and somebody else is on Sprint and your Verizon phone doesn't work, your Verizon phone may still work on 911. That's important to note. There's a lot of value of knowing that because you should still try. Try calling 911 in an emergency. The other advantage of cell phones, and we'll get into this more deeply in a few minutes, is that you can put all these different apps on there, and there's a lot you can put on there. Disadvantages, of course, are limited coverage, battery life. They can be difficult to use in a rescue, and they're fragile. I actually just dropped my phone in Joshua Tree, probably 70 feet. And surprisingly, because I put one of these like otter cases on it that's like super heavy duty, it's fine. It's still all good. It's the same phone. It works just fine. There's not even a crack on it because the case was so robust. That's not otter cases specifically. Any robust case is fine. I'm not trying to sell you something. There are a handful of communications or cell phone things that you should be aware of. The navigation apps, we're going to get into those at some deep level. I'm not going to spend too much time on Peak AR, Peak Finder, but I think that those apps are great. These are the apps where you can actually download them and point them up towards the mountains, and it'll tell you what mountain is what. There's value to those. The weather apps, things like Windy, NOAA Weather, Weather Underground. I don't know if that's still a thing, but a lot of guides used it. NOAA in this era of government cuts is not as good as it used to be. Um, but it's still pretty good, depending on how you're using it. Windy's really good if you're good at using it. I don't know how to put that any better. It's really designed for sailors, but I think it works pretty well. There's a handful of ancillary weather apps we should be aware of. The avalanche forecast apps are pretty good. Open Snow is a great app for ski resorts and around ski resorts. Ski Report is an app that's not quite as good as Open Snow. I think Open Snow is worth its weight in gold, to be perfectly honest, to get really, really good in the weeds forecasts in the winter season. I love the fact that you can put your wilderness first aid information in your phone. And that could be a whole wilderness first aid book, a massive 1,000-page book, but there's several apps there too. Soap Note is something you use in wilderness first aid. In theory, this is something you should be able to pass off, but I think it's pretty good. There's some different apps that provide soap notes. These different apps like Camp Finders, NPS, Forest Service apps, those are pretty good. That can be really helpful for somebody who is looking for a campsite or looking for information. Generally, you do have to be in service for that kind of stuff. Evernote or Apple Notes, I use that kind of stuff all the time. I use Evernote constantly, working as a guide. The Kindle, I love the fact that I can be in the backcountry and read a book. But you can put pretty much anything in your phone these days, whatever reference you feel like you might need. Mountain projects, or other projects, I love the fact you can stick that in your phone. I use inclinometers, the altimeter, the unit converter, and the compass in the mountains all the time. Inclinometer tells you the angle of a slope. The altimeter tells you what altitude you're at. And particularly for when I'm doing more avalanche related work, I use unit converters. And while the mapping apps all have a compass on them, sometimes I just want to know the direction and I can look at it on my phone or on my watch. We'll get to watches later. So here's the big question that's been coming up. You can see the date of this article, June 23rd, 2024. Satellite texting is coming on my iPhone. Do I still need my InReach? And InReach is a satellite messaging system. iPhone 14 or greater, you can get out some kind of satellite messaging text. When you get to like 16 or beyond, you're actually doing person-to-person texts. In fact, the backcountry ski mountaineer, Cody Townsend, recently stated publicly that he was only going to use iPhones from this point forward because he was having such a good response from it. Now, that said, we should be really clear. I'm aware of several situations in the mountain rescue world where text messages from iPhones were not getting through. So I'm not sure I'm there yet to get rid of the InReach because of this advancement in phone technology. But some people are at that point. This is something, like I was saying, maybe things will be different. It's May of 2025. Maybe some things will be different next year. With satellite phone communications, they have great coverage, but holy smokes, do they untether themselves a lot. I can't tell you how many millions of times I have been disconnected while trying to have a conversation with our medical director about something that's happening in the mountains, something I'm worried about. And it just like drops, and then it takes me 5 to 7 minutes to get him back on the phone while the sat phone finds the right satellite communications. I think they're kind of hard to use, like from a mountain rescue perspective, because of this fact that they get dropped and you're trying to talk to people. Sometimes it's better to just be sending in reaches. We'll get to that in a minute. But when all is said and done, getting that precise information from, say, a doctor, hey, this person's having this problem, this problem, this problem, and the doctor's like, I know what that is. It's pretty nice to have a phone that works. All right. Satellite messaging systems. The most popular one right now is the Garmin InReach, though there are others on the market, and I don't want to sound like I'm promoting the Garmin InReach. We use them here at the Institute. All of our guides check in every day to a specialty check-in web page, and that specialty check-in does allow us to know where people are at. This is easy to use and popular. There are weather subscriptions available, which some of our guides use, and these things are way more durable than any of your phone stuff. Disadvantages, particularly with the older versions, is that they can turn on accidentally. In fact, I've gone on a few missions for mountain rescue, especially 5 to 8 years ago, where these things were turning on, and you go to somebody's campsite at the middle of the night just to find them in their tents, comfortable, snug, but they rolled over on their InReach and turned it on somehow. Please, if you turn on your InReach to communicate, please always leave it on. If you're in the middle of some kind of a rescue scenario, you want to have it on, and it's fine to tether it to your phone. Great. But if you're using a phone, I didn't say this in the phone section, make sure you're in satellite mode and make sure that everything is working. I have found in recent years that the Garmin InReach in particular will sometimes disconnect from my phone between trips. So it is super important to make sure that you are testing your InReach before you go in the field. Make sure that it's up to date and that the software is up to date and that you're not going to get out there and find that it will not connect to your phone because you're out of service or whatever other reason. You can still often use the InReach Mini to send an emergency text, but it's a huge pain in the butt to be sending specific texts using a couple of different buttons. It's kind of like when you're searching for that movie on Netflix or on some other streaming app where you're like moving the button around on the words. That's how you're texting if it's not tethered to your phone. So make sure that all of this is updated before you go into the mountains. So this takes us to radios, and we start with FRS radios, and these are the family radio service radios. The Rocky Talkies are great. That's a really common and popular thing right now. They're great for in-person use. They're cheap and easy to use, and a higher level of wattage allows you to use the GMRS radios. This allows you to get further distance when it comes to person-to-person comms. You're supposed to have a license for that, though they will sell you one without a license. Nobody's checking on you. I don't want to get in trouble with the FCC, so I'm not saying that you could use this without a license, but FCC, look the other way. You can use this without a license and nobody's going to check on you, except the FCC, if they listen to this video and then fine me $10 million or something. Anyway, disadvantages is that there are often others on the frequency. There is a limited ability to speak to outsiders. These FRS communications are on channels within a range that is not designed to communicate with, say, a rescue helicopter or something. And generally, you're only able to really talk to people within visible range. That said, when you're mountaineering with buddies, you've got two teams on a mountain. It's pretty nice to be able to communicate to that team that's a quarter of a mile ahead of you. Similarly, it is awesome for ski touring that you can talk to one another when you're in the mountains. So we're going to move up to UHF VHF radios. These are essentially ham radios. It is possible. These are designed to operate on ham frequencies. You do need a license to work on those frequencies. They can be opened up, and you can find ways to do that online. And this means that you could talk to anybody. Is it legal to talk to anybody? No. But you could, in theory, talk to a plane. You could talk to a helicopter. You talk to the sheriff on the sheriff's frequencies. You could talk to the MPS frequencies. But if you're doing that, it better damn well be an emergency because otherwise somebody's likely to prosecute you for that use. Maybe less so if you're like talking to the Forest Service, but the MPS takes it pretty seriously. And certainly the sheriff's department takes it seriously and local police. Now, you might be able to open it up and talk on a SAR frequency to a helicopter that's coming in. And that might be a more legitimate way to use it, though again, it is illegal. I've never heard of anybody being prosecuted in an emergency situation. These are not cell phones. They are kind of hard to use. And I do think UHF, VHF radios really require you to jump down the rabbit hole. You should get your license, play with them with ham radio operators before you start screwing around with them in more high-end situations. The rules change when you go over the border too, and so or you go to other countries. So you may not have any idea what kind of trouble you could get in while you're like randomly on a ham frequency in the United States, and now you're in who knows where, and you're listening to military talk back and forth. You may end up in a hole somewhere. So keep all that in mind. Um, with navigation, um, handheld GPSs are not being used very much these days, uh, but they're burly. And Garmin has a couple of different versions that are both handheld GPSs and are inReaches. And you could argue that when it's raining sideways and your phone is dead, these things are still really, really, really good. And this is why I don't think with iPhones jumping up into the wilderness communications world that these Garmin style heavy duty GPS slash inReaches are going to disappear. And in fact, in guide training this year, I asked the new guides what they'd purchased, and none of them had purchased a Garmin InReach Mini, which is that little tiny super light thing. All of them had leaned into these heavy duty things because they were like, whatever, I need the thing that's always going to work. Um, that was an interesting perspective. High-end watches. Cool thing about high-end watches is that many of them have GPS. When you're looking at them, it's really important to check on the battery life because these kind of smartwatches might have pretty short battery life. What you're looking for is an altimeter in there. I would make the argument that what do you really need if you have one of these other things? What you really need is a watch with an altimeter, period. That's what you need because when you're mountaineering or ski touring or something like that, you're going to use your phone for navigation, but it's pretty good to just be able to look at your wrist and see what altitude you're at. And these expensive watches do wear out. I have one that's older, the Sunto Ambit 3. It was pretty good for a long time, but now it doesn't really work as a GPS at all. It's always telling me the wrong altitudes unless I program it. Barometer can be nice to manage your weather, like what's going on with the weather. There's something to be said. What's happening? And if you see high pressure, that means good weather. Low pressure means bad weather. You can use your altimeter the same way. High pressure, or if suddenly you're gaining an altitude just randomly, um, if you gain altitude randomly, that means that there is low pressure coming in. And if you're going down in altitude randomly, that means high pressure is coming in. And again, high pressure is good weather, low pressure is bad weather. Um, Oftentimes your watch has a compass. That's great. Depending on what kind of watch you get, you can map in it, and some of them do all the same things as some of these apps. Weight is always something to look at. Water resistance, there's no reason to buy a watch that doesn't have 50 meters of water resistance. These are expensive enough. Um, Look for a charging cable that is compatible with something in the field. That's a really good thing to look for. And then, of course, you always want to get a watch with a reasonable warranty. Um, I downloaded this from a recent comparison. I would encourage you, if you're looking for some kind of a field watch, to freeze this screen and look at uh, what you're looking for. What do you need for the type of stuff that you're doing in the mountains? All right, this gets us into navigation apps. And the big question that everybody asks is, what is the value of the different apps? And so we're going to go head to head with the three biggest apps, CalTopo, uh, Gaia, and Onyx. And then we're going to talk about some ancillary apps too, uh, important ancillary apps. And those are Far Out and All Trails. I think that when it comes to these three big apps, they're in all out war with each other. And the question is always, well, what should I buy? And it really depends on what you're doing with the apps. And so a lot of the functionality between the apps is really becoming like similar. A lot of them have 3D mapping now, all three of them really. A lot of them have fire information, historic fire, and maybe even current fire information. So, what are the extra things that these things are offering that make what discriminators do each of these offer that make it right for you? I would lean, if I were starting over again, I would lean into CalTopo. Honestly, I would start right off with CalTopo. I have so much in Gaia right now, I can't go away with it. But Gaia is good too. I'll get to that in a minute. The value of CalTopo for me right now is SAR Topo. I've always loved CalTopo's online interface. I think it is so much better than the others. Um, right now, historically the handheld was really bad, but that got much, much better. Um, really great uh, uh, terrain resolution. The free version is awesome. So if you're like trying to share something with somebody, you can make a map online, share it with somebody, and say, like, here's where I want to go. This sounds awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of value to that. Good for battery life, and I love the fact that more than the others, this is the easiest uh, with the most options for printing and particularly for teaching classes and things. I love that stuff about it. Gaia was better in the handheld version when I was starting to guide. So my whole world is in Gaia. I am a Gaia superstar. I use Gaia constantly. The real discrimination for Gaia right now is that let's go back to the discriminator here. If you're a SAR person, that's the wrong thing. CalTopo, if you're a SAR person, if you do mountain rescue or any kind of rescue, you need CalTopo and SARTopo. SARTopo is a huge discriminator here. And so I get hidden information all the time on different missions we're going to go on in mountain rescue. Gaia, I love everything about it. But the real discriminator here is the Outside Plus subscription. I love the fact I've got all the access to Outside Plus articles and things. That's pretty freaking good. Um, I have found that the desktop version is not quite as good and map printing is not quite as good. But I love how easy it is to import tracks. I love the fact that so many people use it, that there's a lot of public information on there, more than the other platforms that I can find what somebody did and tracked. Super easy to do. Organic data that you put in there can be hard to find and organize. So I try to name everything. I'll name it based on whatever the feature is or the trail is, and then give information after that. So it's easy to find when I'm looking at raw data. So for example, I'm trying to find information about Mount Baker. I'm going to put Baker -NS- whatever it is. waypoint, route, whatever it is, NS being north side. So I would encourage you to do that if you're using Gaia. I love Gaia. I love CalTopo. I think that they're both almost interchangeable. The value of each of them is really high. I think what I lean towards on CalTopo over Gaia right now is shareable maps and really good online interfaces. But holy smokes, Outside Plus is great. OnX is the newest player, and they are really upping their game all the time. Um, what I really like about OnX is that they've designed versions for different activities. And the way I started using OnX for the most is for property line information. And so I'm a guidebook author and things like that. And I was trying to figure out where things are. And we do also a lot of permit activity at the Institute because we operate on federal and state lands and even some private lands, county and city lands. We got to figure out where those lines are. Sometimes even in a ranger district, you have a forest, then you have ranger districts in between, and we have to figure all that out. Onyx does a better job than anybody on that. Um, the property line information I've seen on Onyx Hunt, some of the hunters are a little concerned that some of the information isn't quite right, isn't quite super precise, but it's good enough. Unless you're hunting, probably. That's where, like, there could be, especially on private land, where you could get in a lot of trouble. Um, you can share waypoints with one another through satellites. One of the things I really like that's new is the crowdsourced campsite information. So that could be front country campgrounds, it could be RV parks, but it also could be dispersed camping, maybe on some road somewhere that you want to go out to and set up your camp. Um, they've partnered with Mountain Project, which is really helpful. And I know a lot of guides have really leaned into Onyx, particularly because the Onyx backcountry ski app is really good. And so I'm not a hunter, but it does seem to be where they found their primary audience. There's a lot of mountain biking on Onyx and things like that too. So if you are a heavy multi-sport user, Onyx might be the thing for you. And they are constantly upping their game because the other two really hold the share of the market. Okay, now we're getting very specific. If you're a through hiker and you're like going to do the PCT or the Pacific Crest Trail, or you're going to do the Appalachian Trail or the Continental Divide Trail, Far Out is awesome. They are better than anybody in those settings because what they do is they crowdsource. And so when I use Gaia on one of those trails, I don't have information about whether a creek is running or not, or what a campsite looks like. Um, and so what Far Out does is up to date information. Like if I'm going somewhere and I'm like, wow, it doesn't look like there's any water on this stretch of trail. So now I'm carrying all this water. A lot of times somebody a week before was like, oh, this creek is running. So Far Out, if you're going to go and do one of these long distance national scenic trails or many other trails, Far Out is awesome because of the way it's being used. Now, that said, if you have to get off the trail, I don't think Far Out's that good. You need to pair it with another resource like Gaia, CalTOP, or Onyx. But it exceeds those three others for what it's doing by far. Far Out is really, really good. All trails. This is maybe the most popular of everything, but don't think it's that good. I think it's good if you're like, hey, I'm going to go meet my extended family on some kind of family vacation, and I'm looking for something to trail run. That might be where I use it. Um, but in the scheme of things, I don't think it's probably worth paying for. Um, it's really bad for off-trail travel, and it's heavily crowdsourced. And unlike with the other resources, it's not always crowdsourced by people who have a lot of knowledge. A lot of times it's entry-level folks, and the result is that some of the beta is bad. So now we're getting into battery banks, and charging. You can see in this photo at the bottom, you have this giant like car battery size. This is like the Everest type thing, or the thing you might use at some, at some horse packers camp where you can carry whatever and you're going to be back there for weeks on end. But most of us are using smaller battery banks. Goal Zero tends to be the most popular, but you don't need to use that. Um, Here's the thing. Battery banks wear out over time, and they don't store quite as much as you'd hope. And I would also state that using short cords helps you get as much into your phone as possible. Another thing to consider when it comes to recharging is a lot of times I try not to let my phone go below 50%, and I'm not worried about above 95%. One way to think about that 95% thing is you're trying to get that electricity, those ions into your phone, and the higher it's charged, the more work your battery bank is doing to get that last little percentage in there. And so you're using more power to put that in there, and it decreases the length of time your battery bank's gonna be good for. Think about a crowded theater. You're looking for a spot, and there's like 100 seats in the theater, and there's 95 people in there. You're going to do a lot more work to find those empty seats, and ions are doing the same thing. Um, and so, yeah, solar panels are changing a bit. Um, some of the older versions of them are not that good, and I would never use a solar panel, an older solar panel especially, plug it directly into your phone or your device, because a lot of times if there's clouds over the phone, the panel actually does the exact opposite. For whatever reason, I'm not an engineer, but for whatever reason, um, your solar panel will begin to suck power from your battery bank or your phone. So we generally want to power our battery bank instead. And the more modern versions, some of these solar panels that are also battery bank are better in the scheme of things. And so I'd encourage you to look at that kind of stuff as opposed to trying to fill a battery bank that's like from Best Buy or something like that, that's really made for, I don't know, a place where you don't have any plugs versus something that's really designed for the backcountry. All right, Avalanche transceivers. This is something that you spend a lot of time on when you are specifically operating in an avalanche setting, and I would always encourage you to take an Avalanche Level 1 program and understand the deep knowledge that's required to use these, an Avalanche Level 1 program plus a rescue day, because these are not toys, and using them poorly can really, maybe more than anything else in this entire presentation, lead to a fatality. The big thing is that while transmitting, you want them to be at least 8 inches away from other electronic devices. And while searching, that means at least 20 inches away. So if you're in a backcountry ski scenario or a mountaineering scenario where you need to use an avalanche transceiver, make sure that you turn off your other devices and just use the transceiver. And sometimes people are wearing electronic avalanche airbags. These are the balloons that fill up. There are two types, the canister style and the electronic style. The canister style can't go on airplanes, so a lot of people are using the electronic style these days. If you're using that transceiver and it's too close, that's something people don't think about. Radios, your chest radio, where you put your radio and your transceiver and your phone, you have to think about where you're putting those things so you're meeting these rules while you're traveling in a backcountry scenario. For more information on this, I would defer to a full Avalanche Level 1 program. The RECCO system is a passive system. that sometimes it exists in your clothing, sometimes exists on your harnesses or on your boots. I should say that this system can be used by a helicopter, it can be used by a rescue person, but it isn't really, in the scheme of things, it is a body recovery system. So I think it's good to buy things with RECCO on them, but I don't think you should ever use them with the idea that they're going to take the place of an avalanche transceiver. As a mountain rescuer, I love it when people have these things because if somebody goes missing in the wilderness and they have this thing, that's great because ultimately we are going to be able to find that person. That person is probably passed away when we find them, though. So once again, RECCO system is really a body recovery thing, but if you're doing these kinds of like hazardous sports, we do want to get you back to your family, whether you're living or deceased. I can't tell you how much in our social media we're getting questions about whether AirTags, Apple AirTags, will work in a rescue scenario. Um, this is not good. We are not going to be able to use an Apple AirTag in order to find, in order to find you after some kind of an avalanche or something like that. They require service. They require others with service. Uh, they can be a real problem. So let's not look at these as any kind of solution in a wilderness setting, except for maybe finding a wallet or something like that in an area where there's service. Drones, these can drive people crazy. There's a lot of negativity around drones amongst backcountry users, although there's a lot of people who are making videos and YouTube shows and doing marketing for their companies and all this stuff where people are using drones for that. It's fine, but just recognize that they're not popular and you should never use a drone near somebody else or buzz people who are climbing or skiing or mountaineering or whatever they're doing. Um, drones are controversial. Um, and You are not allowed to use drones in the national parks. You're not allowed to use drones in federally designated wilderness areas. And there could be problems if you do that. Um, I think that drone pilots should always use leave no trace practices. Be aware of all of that. Recognize that not everybody's so psyched on your drone. And if you can do it in a remote place, or if you're writing guidebooks like I have and you're not in a remote place, you can use the drone to get photos of the cliff face, and that's great. Photos of you skiing or climbing, great. But just recognize their impacts on others before employing them and make sure that others are cool with your use. This is my presentation, and you are always welcome to email me at jason@alpineinstitute.com or come to us or our webpage or our Facebook or our YouTube or any of our other social resources to get more community-based information. But really, we are a educational institution and we sell programs for from an educational perspective for technical mountain travelers. And so please come take a course with us. We do a little bit of everything and we operate a little bit of everywhere. Thanks a lot for listening to me talk today and good luck in the mountains. Enjoy it.